Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, December 18th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today is 79.3 degrees, with a low of 54.6 degrees, so expect a mild day with plenty of sunshine to brighten your morning routine. Coming up on the show, we'll break down the factors driving the United States to approve its most massive arms package to Taiwan in history, boosting defenses amid rising regional tensions. We'll also examine the mounting pressures behind California's bold move to potentially strip Tesla of its vehicle sales license over ongoing safety and regulatory concerns. Plus, we'll cover other key developments from around the world, including economic shifts and local updates. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. The U.S. just approved a record arms sale to Taiwan, and it's already drawing sharp reactions. Ethan, walk us through what happened.
Late yesterday, the administration cleared a package topping $10 billion, which Taiwan's defense ministry pegged at $11.15 billion. According to NPR's write-up of an Associated Press report, it's the largest single U.S. arms deal to the island ever. The Defense Security Cooperation Agency sent 8 separate notifications to Congress on December 17th, with formal announcement today, December 18th, starting the 30-day review clock.
What's actually in this package?
It's a mix of long-range missiles, artillery, drones, software, and support gear meant to harden Taiwan across land, sea, and air. The big-ticket items, NPR and WHAS 11 report, include 82 HIMARS launchers and 420 ATACMS missiles for precision strikes up to about 300 kilometers. There are also 60 M109A7 self-propelled howitzers, various drones and loitering munitions, anti-tank javelins and TOWs, helicopter spare parts, and refurbishment kits for Taiwan's Harpoon coastal defense missiles.
Why now, and why this big?
Timing overlaps with the new National Defense Authorization Act for 2026, which the Senate passed yesterday and is awaiting the president's signature, according to NPR's AP coverage. The State Department's notifications say the sales serve U.S. national, economic, and security interests by modernizing Taiwan's defenses and stabilizing the region. WXXI News, citing NPR correspondents Anthony Kuhn and Layla Fidel, frames it as a continuation of the Taiwan Relations Act mandate to provide defensive arms without recognizing sovereignty.
The president spoke last night. Did he mention Taiwan?
He didn't. The package was revealed as he delivered a televised address from the White House's diplomatic reception room, but he made no mention of China or Taiwan. That contrast stood out in several AP-based reports carried by NPR and WHAS 11.
You mentioned a 30-day review. How does that work?
Under the Arms Export Control Act, Congress gets 30 days to review each proposed sale and, in theory, block them with a joint resolution. That's rare, and there's no immediate opposition reported as of this morning, December 18th. The notifications go to Taiwan's de facto embassy in Washington, TECRO, and these are newly opened foreign military sales cases, not re-notifications.
Put this in perspective. How big is it compared to past sales?
WHAS 11, relaying AP figures, notes it exceeds the total $8.4 billion sold during the Biden years. And WXXI's NPR segment points out that during Trump's first term, cumulative sales topped $18 billion across multiple packages, from F-16s to early HIMARS approvals. This single tranche now sets a new record for one package to Taiwan.
Let's dig into the hardware. What did the HIMARS and ATACMS change?
They extend Taiwan's reach and complicate Chinese military planning. ATACMS can hit key nodes like staging areas, ports, or missile batteries on the mainland, giving Taipei a credible long-range counterstrike deterrent. NPR and WHAS 11 both highlight how similar systems prove decisive for Ukraine's defense, which is shaping Pentagon thinking about Taiwan's needs.
And those self-propelled howitzers?
The M109A7s provide mobile, survivable 155mm firepower to blunt an amphibious or airborne assault. They modernize an older artillery fleet and can shoot, move, and shoot again to avoid counter-battery fire. AP reports say they build on earlier M109 approvals that were tangled across administrations, but are now consolidated into this broader push.
Drones are in there too. What's planned?
The notifications reference reconnaissance and combat drones plus tube-launched loitering munitions like ALTIUS. WHAS-11 and NPR say they're crucial for surveillance, targeting, and asymmetric strikes against armor and ships. It echoes the 2020 sale of MQ-9B drones during Trump's first term, but this looks more diversified and geared to distributed operations.
You mentioned software. Why emphasize that?
Tactical Mission Network software and related C4ISR tools knit the sensors and shooters together. Think faster targeting, shared situational awareness, and interoperability with U.S. systems in a crisis. According to NPR's coverage, the Pentagon sees the digital backbone as just as vital as the launchers themselves.
How soon could Taiwan actually get this gear?
Not overnight. DSCA fact sheets and AP reporting suggest 2 to 5 years for major systems, given production backlogs and global demand. Some deliveries could align with Taiwan's special defense budget planned for 2026 through 2033.
What's the price breakdown beyond the headline number?
Estimates cited by the AP have HIMARS/ATACMS at roughly $4.05 billion and howitzers around $4.03 billion. Drones and loitering munitions total over $1 billion. C4ISR software another $1 billion plus. Anti-tank missiles north of $700 million, and smaller support lines for Cobras and Harpoons near $100 million apiece. These are FMS cases primarily, not direct commercial sales.
How did China respond?
Fast and fiercely. Beijing's foreign ministry called the deal a, quote, grave violation, end quote, of past understandings, and accused Washington of turning Taiwan into a, quote, powder keg, end quote, as WHAS-11 relayed from the AP. NPR also quoted Chinese officials warning support for so-called independence forces would backfire, with reunification still on the table by force if necessary.
Any sign of immediate retaliation from Beijing?
No concrete steps overnight, but there's precedent for economic levers, tariffs, export controls on critical materials, and more military flights and naval drills around Taiwan. NPR's analysis notes those gray zone tactics often follow U.S. sales announcements. Expect a messaging blitz through China's embassy too, which already slammed the NDAA for hyping a threat narrative.
How did Taiwan take the news?
With thanks and a focus on deterrence. Taipei's defense ministry said the gear will provide, quote, sufficient self-defense capabilities, end quote, and be a, quote, foundation for regional peace and stability, end quote, according to NPR. Foreign Minister Lin Chia-lung praised the U.S. for long-term support in keeping the strait calm.
What about Taiwan's own spending plans?
They're ramping up. NPR and WHAS-11 report targets of 3.3% of GDP next year and up to 5% by 2030, though the opposition KMT has questioned the fiscal strain. Separately, President Lai announced a roughly $40 billion special budget last month for 2026 to 2033, including a so-called Taiwan Dome air defense network.
Does this signal a change in U.S. policy on Taiwan?
Not formally. The U.S. still practices strategic ambiguity, arming Taiwan without an explicit pledge to fight. WXXI News emphasizes this fits the Taiwan Relations Act's requirement to provide defensive arms and maintain the capacity to resist coercion, while stopping short of recognizing sovereignty.
How does the NDAA fit into this?
The NDAA sets broad defense priorities and authorizations, including support for Taiwan's defense posture. NPR's AP coverage said the Senate passed it yesterday, and it's now awaiting the president's signature. That legislative backdrop gives political cover for large sales like this.
Are there any notable voices in Congress weighing in yet?
not in the initial flurry of reporting. As of this morning, December 18th, no leading members had staked out opposition in the coverage by NPR or WHAS 11. Given prior bipartisan votes on Taiwan support, most observers expect the 30-day review to run without a successful block.
What's the strategic effect of adding long-range missiles to Taiwan?
It complicates any quick-win invasion plan by raising the cost of staging and logistics for the People's Liberation Army. Ports, airfields, and depots within 300 kilometers become riskier, forcing China to disperse and defend more assets. NPR's analysis suggests that kind of calculus is central to deterrence.
And the maritime picture with harpoon support?
Refurbishment keeps Taiwan's coastal batteries ready to deny access in the strait. Extending the service life of those anti-ship missiles reinforces a layered defense, mines, missiles, and mobile launchers that make a blockade or landing more dangerous. AP reports say it's a modest dollar line with outsized operational value.
What do production delays mean for deterrence today?
There's a gap between policy intent and hardware in hand. NPR notes that's why the U.S. is pushing software, training, and survivable mobile systems Taiwan can field sooner alongside industrial base investments at home. It's deterrence by showing the pipeline is real and growing, even if deliveries take years.
Could China try to pressure U.S. defense companies?
Possibly, but many have minimal direct exposure to the Chinese market due to export controls and past tensions. More likely, Beijing would retaliate broadly, targeting sectors like agriculture or tech components, or using regulatory pressure against U.S. firms operating in China. Analysts told NPR those tools are well worn.
How do U.S. allies factor into this?
This sale isn't a treaty move, but it complements wider regional balancing. WHAS 11 points to alignment with AUKUS and the Quad, where the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India coordinate to deter coercion. The logic is that a better armed Taiwan reduces the odds of a crisis that could rope in Japan or the Philippines.
What's the risk of miscalculation here?
It's real. Each new sale prompts Chinese exercises. Each exercise prompts Taiwanese alerts and U.S. statements, raising the chance of a close call at sea or in the air. NPR's Asia desk underscores how crowded, fast-moving interactions in the strait can spiral if communication breaks down.
How does this compare to Biden-era support for Taiwan?
The AP tally cited by WHAS 11 puts Biden-era sales at $8.4 billion, smaller in aggregate than Trump's first-term packages, which WXXI says exceeded $18 billion. This single deal leapfrogs those annual totals and symbolically signals sustained support regardless of party cycles. The mix of long-range fires and C4ISR also reflects lessons drawn since 2022.
Did the DSCA name prime contractors?
Not in the initial notifications. AP-linked fact sheets note all gear is U.S.-made, and industry watchers infer usual suspects. Lockheed Martin on HIMARS ATACMS, BAE Systems on howitzers, but the documents didn't enumerate primes yesterday. That often comes later, once contracts move beyond notification.
How is Taiwan integrating this with its own programs?
The Taiwan Dome project, announced last month, aims to fuse radars, interceptors, and command systems, making the most of new U.S. software and sensors. Drones and loitering munitions dovetail with Taipei's shift towards smaller, distributed units that can survive initial strikes. NPR's coverage frames it as moving from big platforms to resilient networks.
What do we know about training and sustainment?
FMS deals typically bundle training, spares, and support, and that's reflected here with helicopter parts and harpoon kits. The bigger challenge is maintaining tempo under pressure, which is why the software and mission network pieces matter, keeping units connected when communications are contested. AP reports say delivery schedules will be staggered, with training running ahead of some hardware.
Could Congress push for even faster deliveries?
They may try. There's been bipartisan talk about expanding surge capacity for munitions and accelerating foreign military sales processing. According to NPR's reporting, the backlog across multiple allies is a known constraint, and pressure has been building to streamline it.
What's Beijing's main legal argument against these sales?
China cites the 1979 communiques and its One China principle, saying U.S. arms violate those understandings and interfere in internal affairs. Washington counters with the Taiwan Relations Act, which, as WXXI notes, obligates the U.S. to provide defensive arms and maintain the capacity to resist coercion. That legal tug-of-war has framed every sale for decades.
Any quotes worth noting from either side?
Beijing called the sale a, quote, grave violation, end quote, and warned the U.S. was turning the island into a, quote, powder keg, end quote, per WHAS 11's AP coverage. Taiwan's defense ministry said the arms would ensure, quote, sufficient self-defense capabilities, end quote, forming a, quote, foundation for regional peace and stability, end quote, as NPR reported. Those phrases capture the gap in narratives, escalation versus deterrence.
What happens next on the U.S. side?
The 30-day congressional review runs into mid-January, barring a recess adjustment, and then the State Department can finalize letters of offer and acceptance. The NDAA signature, expected soon based on NPR's timeline, adds momentum. After that, it's contracting, production slots, and a long logistics tail.
Final thought. How should viewers think about this today?
It's a signal as much as a shipment. The U.S. is telling allies and adversaries that Taiwan's defenses will thicken, even if it takes years to arrive. As NPR and WXXI emphasize, the goal is to keep the peace by convincing Beijing that coercion won't be quick or cheap.
Ethan, thanks for breaking that down.
Always good to be here.
California's DMV just took a big step against Tesla's self-driving claims, and it could even hit their sales license. Chloe is here to break it down. Chloe, what exactly did the state decide?
The DMV has formally found Tesla engaged in deceptive marketing around autopilot and full self-driving, but it stopped short of an immediate penalty. According to AP News, the agency adopted an administrative judge's conclusions this week and put a 30-day suspension of Tesla's California sales license on hold, giving the company a chance to fix its messaging first. That's the crux. The conduct was deceptive, the punishment is real, but enforcement is paused to allow compliance.
How long does Tesla have to change course before that suspension kicks in?
90 days from the decision, which came down Monday into Tuesday, so we're talking mid-March 2026. Outlets like The Street and Benzinga say the DMV clarified that window after some early confusion, since a few tech blogs initially reported 60 days. The DMV's director, Steve Gordon, said, covered by the LA Times, that Tesla can take simple steps to permanently resolve it, meaning clearer, less misleading language about what these systems can and can't do.
What triggered all of this? When did the investigation start?
The probe dates back to October 2022, kicked off by consumer complaints and splashy demos that suggested the cars could drive themselves. AP News reports the DMV dug into over-the-air updates, sales scripts, website copy, and those public statements from Elon Musk about imminent robotaxis. The key issue wasn't how the cars physically performed day to day, it was the net impression their marketing left with a reasonable consumer.
So the problem isn't the tech, it's the way Tesla talked about it?
Exactly. California law, including a 2022 statute known as Senate Bill 1398, bans calling something self-driving if it still needs human supervision. According to The Guardian, the judge found Tesla repeatedly implied autonomy on par with levels 4 or 5, hands-off, eyes-off driving, while the systems remain level 2 driver assistance that demand constant attention. The legal standard is whether typical buyers were led to believe more than the product actually delivers.
What kind of evidence convinced the judge?
A lot centered on Tesla's words and imagery. Forbes and Yahoo Finance highlight a 2020 promotional video still on Tesla's site for nearly 4 years, depicting a car handling itself without clear, prominent disclaimers. The Washington Post and NPR have previously noted surveys showing people exposed to full self-driving language often assume true autonomy, and the judge cited similar findings here. She wrote the phrase full self-driving is, quote, actually unambiguously false and counterfactual, end quote, and said autopilot perpetuated an unlawful tradition of using ambiguity to mislead.
Who made that ruling, and when did it happen?
The proceedings were held over 5 days in July in Oakland. In November, Administrative Law Judge Juliette Cox issued a more than 100-page proposed decision, which the DMV director adopted on Monday and yesterday, so just ahead of today. NBC Los Angeles noted that's an unusual venue for what amounts to a truth in advertising case, rather than something like a crash-focused safety hearing.
Did the DMV consider suspending Tesla's manufacturing license too?
The judge initially recommended a 30-day suspension of both the sales and factory licenses, which would have hit the Fremont plant. But, as The Guardian and Forbes reported yesterday, the DMV permanently stayed the manufacturing penalty because the violations were about marketing, not how cars were built. The sales suspension is the leverage point, and it's currently stayed if Tesla complies.
What exactly does Tesla have to change in its marketing?
The orders go beyond a new footnote. According to the Register and Teslarati, Tesla is expected to revise branding, dropping or qualifying terms like autopilot and full self-driving unless they truly reach autonomy and make it unmistakable that these are supervised Level 2 features. That includes the website, brochures, in-car displays, sales scripts, and especially older videos that imply unsupervised operation. There's also a training requirement, so staff emphasize the need for driver attention and executives avoid futuristic promises presented as current capability.
Are we talking about Elon Musk's robotaxi timeline here?
Very much so. AP News and The Street point out the judge flagged Musk's 2019 pledge of 1 million robotaxis by 2020 as emblematic of overpromising without delivering. The order discourages touting robotaxi fleets unless there's present-day evidence, not wishful projections. A consumer who hears those promises and sees a car gliding down city streets without hands on the wheel might reasonably believe it's autonomous today.
Why is California such a big deal for Tesla's business?
California remains Tesla's largest U.S. market and a major share of its overall deliveries. Yahoo Finance estimates roughly half of Tesla's American sales originate here. A 30-day shutdown of new deliveries and showroom activity would translate to millions in lost revenue. And because the state sets a tone for other regulators, a tough California order often polarizes the wider industry.
How did Tesla respond to the decision?
Publicly, Tesla has pushed back hard. CBS News and Inside EVs report that the company's North America account on X called this regulatory overkill in a consumer protection order about the use of autopilot, adding that not a single customer came forward to complain. They argue the manuals and on-screen alerts have always told drivers to pay attention, and that the features are clearly supervised. In the hearings, a Tesla lawyer said, quote, "We have never misled consumers. Never. And not even close," end quote, as Forbes recounted.
Any sign they'll appeal or ask a court to step in?
Not yet. As of today, Politico Pro and Electrek say Tesla hasn't filed an appeal, sought a judicial stay, or asked for court review, though those avenues remain open. For now, the company says sales in California will continue uninterrupted, and it's framing this as a debate over terminology, not safety.
Speaking of safety, did the DMV cite crashes tied to autopilot or FSD?
They did reference incidents to show how misleading impressions can turn dangerous when drivers over-rely on the tech. NBC Los Angeles pointed to fatal crashes where inattentive drivers believed the system would handle everything. At the federal level, NHTSA has had multiple investigations running since 2021, but the California case is squarely about advertising and the reasonable consumer standard rather than crash causation.
How does Tesla's branding compare with other automakers?
That contrast is part of the backdrop. The LA Times and GovTech note that competitors like GM and Ford use brand names Super Cruise, Blue Cruise that don't imply full autonomy, while Mercedes calls its conditional automation Drive Pilot, again avoiding self-driving language. California's 2022 law was widely seen as targeting the phrasing Tesla used, which lawmakers believed had gone essentially unchecked.
Has the DMV taken similar action against other companies?
Not in this exact way. The DMV has suspended operational permits for safety reasons. Cruise's driverless program in 2023 is a well-known example, but using a threatened sales license suspension to enforce marketing rules is new territory. That's why The Guardian and NPR say this could become a precedent for how regulators police AI hype in cars, not just the underlying technology.
What about Musk's recent claims of progress? Did those matter here?
Only insofar as they reinforce the perception gap. Electrek has covered controlled driverless tests in Austin that Musk touts, but the judge's point, echoed by AP News, is that as of the ads in question, and as of now, these vehicles can't operate as autonomous vehicles. Director Gordon's statement captured it bluntly, he said, quote, "These vehicles could not, at the time of those advertisements, and cannot now, operate as autonomous vehicles," end quote.
You mentioned surveys earlier. Was there an absence of customer complaints?
That's right, and it's part of Tesla's talking points. Clean Technica and The Street note the case didn't present individual consumer grievances. Instead, the DMV leaned on the reasonable consumer test. Survey data before the judge showed that many buyers exposed to Tesla's phrasing believed the cars could handle trips with no driver action, which is why the judge called the language misleading even without a parade of complainants.
How's the market reacting? Any movement on Tesla stock?
It's been choppy. Yahoo Finance reports shares popped to around $495 intraday yesterday on broader AI optimism, then slipped under $470 as investors digested the regulatory risk. Beyond this case, Tesla's facing a tougher 2025. Global deliveries were down about 9% year-over-year through September. Competition is biting and the lineup's aging despite a Model Y refresh and cheaper variants.
Are there legal risks outside this DMV action?
Yes, and they add weight to the DMV narrative. In Miami, a jury this year awarded $240 million in an autopilot crash case, which puts the spotlight on whether the company's claims contribute to misuse. The DMV's order isn't about assigning blame for a specific accident, but CBS News and The Guardian say the broader legal climate makes precise, conservative language more important than ever.
If Tesla complies in the next 3 months, what changes might we actually see?
You'd likely see full self-driving, supervised, consistently, not just in fine print. A shift Tesla started in 2023 but would need to standardize across every touchpoint. The 2020 demo video would be pulled or paired with unmistakable, prominent disclosures, and references to robotaxis would be framed as future aspirations without implying present capability. Sales staff would be trained to remind buyers that hands stay on the wheel and eyes on the road, period.
And if they don't comply?
The DMV can flip the switch on that 30-day sales suspension, halting new deliveries and showroom activity statewide. Yahoo Finance estimates that would cost Tesla millions, given California's role as the country's largest EV market. If the standoff continued, the DMV could escalate to fines or even consider longer suspensions, which would be unprecedented for a marketing case.
What's the bigger industry takeaway here?
It's a warning to every carmaker dabbling in automated features. NPR's experts say the lesson is to market what your system is today, not where you hope it'll be tomorrow, and to make the safety boundary unmistakable. If this is resolved cleanly, it might actually give Tesla a credibility boost. If not, it could force a rewrite of EV marketing norms and spur federal rules that mirror California's posture.
Any sense of whether this will spread beyond California?
California often sets the tone, and other states watch. The Guardian points out regulators have been looking for a test case to draw a line on, AI washing, and this could be it. NHTSA doesn't regulate ads, but a state victory like this might encourage federal guidance that ties safety compliance to the way features are presented to consumers.
Last thing. Why now, after years of Tesla using these terms?
2 reasons. First, SB 1398 took effect in 2022, giving regulators a sharper tool to police self-driving language for supervised systems. Second, the accumulation of incidents, investigations, and the sheer persistence of terms like full self-driving created a record the DMV could take to an administrative judge. As AP News framed it, this is the state saying innovation's welcome, but truth in advertising isn't optional.
Chloe, that was clear and really helpful. Thanks for walking us through it.
Thanks, Grace. We'll keep an eye on how Tesla responds over the next few weeks.
Here are some other headlines. In Brussels, EU leaders are trying to turn frozen assets into thawed resolve, debating a plan to tap roughly 210 billion euros in immobilized Russian funds to back a reparations loan for Ukraine. With President Volodymyr Zelensky at the table, the bloc aims to secure 90 billion euros in financing to keep Kiev's defense funded through 2027. What Poland's Donald Tusk framed as money today or blood tomorrow. The legal icebreaker now focuses on Belgium, home to Euroclear, where Prime Minister Bart De Wever seeks guarantees against Moscow's harshest retaliation and potential multi-billion euro suits. The move is designed to, Trump-proof, aid and steer around Hungarian veto potholes as the war nears year 4. In Johannesburg, an immigration raid touched off a diplomatic cold front. South African authorities arrested 7 Kenyan nationals at a U.S.-contracted refugee processing center, RSC Africa, alleging they were working on tourist visas. The facility handles applications for white South Africans or Afrikaners, prioritized under a controversial U.S. program rooted in disputed claims of persecution that Pretoria rejects. Washington called the interference unacceptable, raising the temperature in relations already simmering after a U.S. boycott of the recent G20 in South Africa. The ordered deportations threatened to grind the operation's gears, as the Kenyan staff, hired to sidestep local sensitivities, were key cogs in the processing pipeline. Near Washington, D.C., the government's legal compass now points squarely inward after January's catastrophic mid-air collision that killed 67. In a court filing, the Justice Department admitted that negligence by both an FAA air traffic controller and an Army Black Hawk crew proximately caused the crash, citing a controller's failure to follow visual separation rules and helicopter pilots' failure to see and avoid an approaching American Airlines regional jet. It's a rare, rapid mea maxima culpa, less than a year since the deadliest U.S. aviation accident since 2001, potentially accelerating settlements for families, including those of a team of young figure skaters. The government still argues the airlines share some turbulence in the blame. In Boulder, federal budgeteers plan to rain on NCAR's parade, announcing a breakup of the National Center for Atmospheric Research, a 65-year-old hub scientists call the global mothership of weather and climate modeling. OMB's Russ Vaught labeled NCAR a fountain of climate alarmism, promising to transfer vital work elsewhere without saying where. Researchers warned the move would snap the data lifeline for forecasting wildfires, hurricanes, and floods, undercutting the $1.5 billion U.S. weather enterprise relied on by insurers, airlines, and emergency managers. After last month's rebrand of NREL to the National Laboratory of the Rockies, critics say the forecast for federal science now includes scattered cuts, with a 100% chance of disruption. On Capitol Hill, 4 centrist Republicans, Brian Fitzpatrick, Mike Lawler, Rob Bresnahan, and Ryan McKenzie, crossed party lines to sign a discharge petition, forcing a vote to extend Affordable Care Act subsidies, hitting the 218 signature mark and bypassing leadership. Speaker Mike Johnson, citing a razor-thin majority, insists he hasn't lost control. But recess and rules may stall the vote until January 2026. With ACA tax credits set to expire December 31st, premiums for roughly 24 million enrollees could double without a fix, turning a policy pothole into a fiscal cliff. The revolt spotlights a widening GOP rift as swing district moderates try to ensure health costs don't become their Achilles heel. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with GPT-5, Gemini Pro 3, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.